And now back to your regular programming.
If you speak better to yourself.
You showed up for probably the dumbest conversation we've ever had on this show.
Let's have that smile again.
Tell me how that happens. Physically should not happen.
Relax.
If you say it
Give me as well.
3 times a day, God will line it up.
He's just an absolute hack, and he gets his ass kicked by the teammates every week. It's just terrible.
Welcome back to Hack City. I'm Joe DeLeone, and with me is my former teammate and roommate from the University of Rhode Island, Sean Anderson. Today, we're going to be doing our first part of predicting win totals for the 2024 college football season. We're going to start with the Big 12, and all of these lines that we're using can be found on BetOnline. Before we get into sharing our picks, Sean, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find these wonderful betting lines that we're using today?
Don't skip forward 30 seconds. Don't do it. We have a new wager bet system promotion for you to use. All right, so don't go skipping around until you hear the deal. God, I know what you are. I know what you, the listener, does, because I do the same thing. But if there's an actual promo that we can help you with,
why would you tell them that? Why would you say that?
I already have a mattress, and I guess Sleepy and Sealy mattress, whatever. Everywhere it has a mattress sponsor. I got a bed. I don't need to hear that one. Betting sponsors I listen to. BetOnline, number one source. Regardless. If you're betting what now? Baseball? I hit one baseball bet this weekend. It made my weekend.
Congratulations.
I sniped the Cardinals against the Nats in the top of the ninth because I knew the Nats were going to lose. So I was happy to get plus 430 odds on that. Sniping a line at BetOnline. That's where you should go. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BLEAV, that's BLEAV, for your 50% free bet credit. That's not deposit. 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. You know how that works? You make your deposit, then you get a free bet credit for half of what your deposit was. BetOnline. The game starts here. New promo. Use it.
Nice,
Bet against the
nice
Nats.
job there.
They stink.
Yeah, the Nats are absolutely dog
I bet on,
right now.
and I like James Wood, right? I'm sure you saw a little bit of the buzz. I bet on him to homer in his first 4 games, just outright. And then I don't bet on him yesterday, and he just knocks a bomb way deep. What are you gonna do? It's just how it goes, I guess.
Well, you're a bad sports bettor, which we're going to find out today as we're going to be predicting and guessing. Not guessing. God, that's the worst word to have possibly used. Analyzing what the proper course of action to take on if you, the listener, should bet over or under, and you can decide if Sean and I are more correct. So basically, just use your inherent biases to pick whichever one of us you would prefer to listen to. But Sean's going to be wrong on this. I wonder if Sean would be proactive enough to maybe, if I sent him my picks, if he could put it into a spreadsheet for us to check at the end of the season. I would bet the no on that one. I'm going to start us off with Arizona.
Do you want a spreadsheet? You're doing production notes again. I'll track it if you want.
Well, I'm always down for extra due diligence on keeping track of
I know you need it.
If they're succeeding or not. But again, yeah, if you want to go forward with doing that, you let me know and I will send you my picks so you have them organized and you don't need to sit and listen to the episode. But Sean, Arizona, starting with the first one. They are at 7.5 wins, which is one of the more surprising ones on BetOnline. There's a couple of these that are gold mines for taking the over because they are disturbingly low when you look at their schedules. So the way that I approach this is I looked at each of their schedules. I have a pretty good pulse on a number of the top teams in these conferences and also some of the mid-level teams and the back-end teams in the Big 12 especially, to understand, while looking at their schedule, what are the losable games. If there is a small number of losable games and that number is less than what the win total is, it's easy to pick the over in the situation. So there might be some crossover of me saying, I think said team could beat this team, and we get to the other team later, and I might say the opposite. But Arizona, I really only spotted 3 difficult games for them with that 7.5 win total. The only 3 that stood out were Kansas State, at Utah, and at West Virginia. While I'm not super high on Brent Brennan right away, and I'm also very wary of the fact that their depth is going to be an issue, I think that they could potentially, outside of these 3 games, there is a gigantic groundhog in my periphery, outside of these 3 games, they could potentially lose a random one because of injury, because of the depth issues that they have, because they were so heavily depleted by Jed Fish leaving and going to Washington. But that 7.5 number is ridiculously low. So, Sean, I am taking the over with Arizona.
Yeah, I like your process. I went through a similar process, just checking out the Big 12 teams and their schedules and seeing, which game are they going to lose. And then sometimes I'd find a split. If I see two games that are close, all right, I'll knock that one down, because if they are some B-level Big 12 teams, one of them's going to win, one of them's going to lose. That's how my mind goes. But I put my own win totals for these teams in, and I had Arizona at 9, which does clear. So I definitely take the over here on their win totals for the season. I like Fafita. I like what they're doing. I'm pretty confident in the Pac-12 teams rolling into the Big 12 and doing well. I just am. I think Big 12 is welcoming, and they're not very stubborn defensive schemes across the board, so it's a little more favorable for offenses to get acclimated. So I'll take Arizona over for sure.
Yeah, the big thing for me with this is that favorable schedule, and then you mentioned McMillan and Fafita, who we talked a lot about McMillan when we did our receiver episode. Those guys are good enough to keep them in most difficult games that they have, even if they are depleted and they're dealing with health issues. And I really think that's going to happen to them at some point this season. But because of the elite players leading them at the top like Tacario Davis is a player who I like at corner for them. Jonas Savonea is a really good offensive tackle for them. They've got NFL dudes. It's just the back end, and if they stay healthy for as long as they possibly can. Now, their rival, Arizona State, is at 4.5, and this is one of the rare circumstances I'm going to take the under on a really low win total. Whoa. They have to play Mississippi State. They have to play Kansas, Utah. They're hosting all three of those teams, and then they go to Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and Arizona. That is 6 games already that I think are really difficult matchups. I just don't truly understand and know, where did Arizona State really get better. I think that Kenny Dillingham is a coach that I really like, and I think that he is pushing them potentially in the right direction, but it has been a bit of a slow crawl as everybody else around them has been out recruiting them, not to mention the fact that there was this hope that, hey, Jaden Rashada can rise the floor of this team, and that was my thought before he transferred, of thinking, hey, even if there are holes across this roster, Rashada could get them to just being a really consistently good 6-win team over the next couple of seasons, and then when he moves on, wherever it might have been in those couple of years, that they would have taken a next step because Dillingham would have had the firepower to recruit. But I don't really know what they've done enough this offseason to make me feel like that they're going to win 5 football games. It feels like this is going to be a 4-win year in a season where they're going to be facing off with a lot of teams that have a ton of firepower.
I gave them 5, and that's pretty low. I for my just schedule browsing, that's pretty low for me. And then it's 5 wins. I think Arizona State and Kenny Dillingham can scheme up 4 of those, and then one of those wins comes off of some dumb luck. That I can bankroll that mindset into Arizona State clearing 4.5. It's 5 wins. If they get out of September with 2 or 3, maybe we coast. That's the goal. But this bet, if you do take it, it will be decided in September. It will not. You will know October 1st whether or not this is one that you just want to forget about. But I have them over 5. I think that if you're a D1 program, you should aspire to get 5 wins at minimum every year. That's what you should do. I think
easier said than done.
Trust me, I gotcha.
As 2 individuals who played on some dog shit football teams, Division I football teams, it is much easier said than done.
Yeah, I know, but I'm sticking with the over. I'll be an optimist for Arizona State.
You're an idiot.
Sure.
Baylor is another one. I'm taking the under. This is going to be a lot of unders. Ooh, there's a ton of unders in a row on these. Just muck of bad teams that are in the back end of the Big 12. Look, somebody has to be bad in the Big 12, and we have to come up with a pick, even though there are some of these that are a little wish-washy on it toeing the line. But 5.5 was their number. I'm taking the under because they have potentially one of the most difficult schedules for what they're dealing with right now. This is a real last push for Aranda to get his feet underneath him, to maybe instill some confidence in the athletic department. But
take a public speaking class then, Dave. Go and be better at a press conference. Scary as hell, surgeon of death behind the microphone.
That's not going to happen. It does not help that they seemingly were the fodder for all of the new Pac-12 teams because they have to play Utah, at Colorado, and then they also have to take on at Iowa State, who is going to be a competitive, competent team. We'll get to them later. I really like Texas Tech, and I think that Texas Tech is better than Baylor versus Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State should probably, if Ollie Gordon does get suspended, he's going to be available because it's much later on in the season. I don't see them beating TCU. They go to West Virginia, which is one of the harder places to win in the Big 12, and that is going to be a common theme for some of the things we talk about. And then they finish the season, I believe, by playing Kansas. So that is just a gauntlet. 5.5 is a really generous number that was given to them. So I am totally taking the under. I really think, and I'm sorry, Baylor fans, I think it is going to be a bloodbath with some of the talent that is going to be on a bunch of these rosters that they're going to be facing.
Here's the thing. The only problem, I think I'm going to take the under also. The only problem and question I have to pose for you about Baylor, because I really like where your head's at with them, does DeQuan Finn get them 6 wins? Does he take that starting role and start shocking the Big 12 and get him to 6 wins? He's really the only key that I have to them getting over that mark. But hey, we both saw it. I think we both are fans of his game.
Let me put it this way. This was a really thin quarterback market this year in the transfer portal, and he ended up at Baylor. I like DeQuan Finn. I think that if he stayed at Toledo, that would have been so great for him, and I think that his career would have been so exciting. But he's one of those dudes where I don't really know if it was worth him moving.
Take the shot.
Up
I don't mind him taking the shot.
I'm rooting for him, but it's pretty telling that most of the top programs that needed quarterbacks did not really aggressively pursue him as at least an option.
Yeah, he got banged up a little last year. I'll take the under on Baylor. Someone has to be bad, and the next team also, I think I'm taking the under for sure.
Yeah,
this one could be quick.
BYU has been a really just an odd team in conference realignment rather. Their basketball team seems to be potentially taking advantage of playing in the Big 12 because they looked really good last year. But yeah, I don't feel good with this roster. They are a team that sometimes will come out of the woodwork seemingly with guys that we've never heard of because they do have this advantage of kind of hiding guys that are, go on these missions for a year or however long it is, and then suddenly you've got a first-round tackle that comes out of nowhere like Kingsley Somatea last year. But quickly to run through their schedule as I've been doing, at SMU versus Kansas State, at Baylor versus Arizona versus Oklahoma State, at UCF, at Utah versus Kansas, and versus Houston are the games that I triggered as tough sledding. So I'm not saying that they have 1 win, but 4 is probably a pretty
They can't all be over,
measure.
Right?
Yeah. I'm
BYU
not going to be that asshat who does a betting segment and a prediction segment and goes, oh, these guys are pretty good. Everyone's going to be 8-5.
Take it if you
Somebody
like
has
them.
to lose.
Yeah, no, look, this is not one we're guessing, all right? We know that we have your finances in our hands as your sports wagering financial advisors, like all these other shows on TV. So if you're trusting us, we will try to instill that by giving you an under pick every now and then.
So that's your succinct
they're under
analysis.
BYU stinks, and they're going to be bad this year.
I swear to God, I have a zoo in my backyard. There's now a cat roaming around. Thank God that our apartment is not going to have any wildlife because I can't keep getting this. What's
going on? Oh, you're in the sunroom. Gotcha. So
I'm in the sunroom. I saw the gopher. The gopher was right by the sliding door. The cat was right by the sliding door. There's 3 cats that roam around back there. There's probably going to be another one in the next 10 minutes.
Okay.
I'm just telling you. I'm giving you.
Do you want to go outside and just give a quick yell at them? Just go yell in your backyard and scare them off.
No.
Okay, then let's stop talking about the animals.
They're enjoying themselves. Okay. All right. Cincinnati 5.5. Speaking of animals, they have an animal mascot. That's one of the worst transitions I've
you
ever
took a new shot, and
you
you still went with speaking of. You are...
Some things will never change. 5.5. Another team that I really like for the under. At Texas Tech, I really like Texas Tech. So this is, again, a returning theme as we're talking about a lot of these difficult games for these back-end teams in the Big 12. I'm going to keep bringing up Texas Tech. At UCF, I think UCF is better. I think that Colorado, having to travel to Colorado, is not a good matchup for them. Versus West Virginia, I'm very bullish on West Virginia. They will be the last team that we talk about. At Iowa State, very difficult for them to have to travel on the road. At Kansas State, that is a bloodbath with one of the best teams in the conference. And then I do not see them beating TCU. I think it would be really hard for them to get to 6 wins. They're one of these teams where we're looking at the conference and we're going to talk about more of the positive ones soon that made improvements, that were aggressive in the portal, that have some young pieces that seem to be developing. But Satterfield, I don't really know what's happening here with this Cincinnati team. It seems kind of like they've been in limbo and they haven't really improved as the rest of this conference is getting far more competitive.
The problem with Cincinnati's great championship run, or playoff run rather, was that it brought expectation, and greatness brings expectation, and expectation is it's not a burden, it's a blessing. We get all the cliches. Cincinnati, though, now that we're paying more attention to them and have been since, not much upwards momentum. Not much that you're sitting here saying, oh, they'll be right back. No, they were there and they were fun and they were really good, and a lot of pieces lined up, and they had 2 phenomenal corners, and they had a good college quarterback who didn't really translate well into the NFL. But thanks for Rondale Moore, Arizona. You have him. Best trade I've ever seen in my life. Get him off my team. Cincinnati under. I had them. Yeah, I had them at 5.5.
It also
is right on the bubble. Chop it under.
It also does not help, and I don't know what's going to happen with this situation, but they have a real dude on their defensive line with Dante Corleone. I'm a big fan of him. He is going to be a top 100, 150 pick in the NFL draft, assuming his health situation is figured out. But he is right now out indefinitely. This was very recently with blood clots, very similar to the Trey Smith situation. Maybe he does get back onto the field at some point, but when you've got one guy who's the anchor of your defense and some quality players, losing that anchor is brutal. As 2 guys that were on a bad D1 team that had guys that we really leaned on. When we lost those guys that we leaned on, we immediately fell apart.
Yeah.
So that's enough evidence there. So now the clickbait crowd has skipped ahead to this pick, and then they're going to tune out immediately once we give our take. Colorado, 5.5. I'm going with the under. Just kidding. I'm giving them the over. Look, I support Deion Sanders and Travis Hunter. I'm being a little bit over the top of that. 5.5 is a really nice number for them because it doesn't really give them an unachievable ceiling. That is so workable for them, and I think that, as I said when they were making this transition to the Big 12, this current roster, even with so many question marks defensively on how they're going to mesh and how the whole newly pieced together offensive line is going to work together. If it's going to take some time, which it will, for them to get into a rhythm and get to know each other and develop the rapport necessary to be a better offensive line than last year. They're playing in a league that doesn't really have a lot of premier defensive line talent, and also just generally doesn't play super competitive, difficult defense. The top teams definitely do, but the middle to back end of the conference isn't great. It's one of the worst conferences, I'm sorry to say this, in terms of just general recruiting along the lines of scrimmage. That really helps Colorado stepping into a situation where they've got a ton of great athletes and then a lot of question marks at other positions. The games that I highlighted that are going to be tough for them, Kansas State, I don't think that they can beat Kansas State. I don't think that they can travel to Arizona and beat them. Utah, they're going to lose to. I think that they lose to Kansas on the road and Oklahoma State, but that should be enough for them to get the 6 wins. I think 6 wins is extremely doable, or potentially 7, and I'm going to get called an asshole in the comments because I didn't say that Colorado was going to go 14-0, somehow winning an extra game that wasn't on their schedule.
I'm smashing the over here, and I'll tell you why, Joe, because I'm rooting for college football this year, and I want to have fun. And you know what's fun? Colorado. And if they're good or they're bad or they're blowing teams out or they're getting upset late, having a little action on Colorado through the season is a good bet. Root for the over. Take the over.
Terrible.
Oh my God, Joe! You need a bet like this in the Big 12. This is what the Big 12 is for: is fun bets. A Colorado over makes sense and it's fun. It's a double winner
Put some
for
nuts
me.
and do some real analysis. Oh, this is
my
fun. I'm
God.
going to root for him.
You said
I'm gonna root
5.5
for him.
was good and workable. I'm sure. Yeah. 5.5. I'm sure 8 probably would have been too much for you to handle. You and your double entendres.
If they had 8, I would be stunned. And the only reason it would be at 8 is because the uneducated. Sorry, I'm not going to use the word uneducated. The anyone who's not paying attention to college football and is just throwing bets down.
The Weekend Warriors.
The Weekend Warriors. The not super doven in fans like us.
I'm giving
That's the
Colorado
only way
another
to-
chance this year, and I think it's fun to buy in on them.
I'm supporting them too. I think that they get over that number. I just I hate the
Show some balls. What are you? I'm stepping up to the plate, ready for another year of Buffs football. You stink.
No, that's a cowardly pick
I'm
just
sure.
to do that. They're fun to watch. Let's root for them. I'm gonna put a little money on them. Let's see what they do.
Sorry, I like college football. I'm like you. My bad.
That's rich coming from you. Houston, 3.5 wins. Man, I was really trying to find a way to make the overwork here. I think that Donovan Smith is a guy to watch this year who's really a dynamic athlete at quarterback. He's been getting a little pub and a little love as somebody who could sneak his way into the first round. I don't know if I'm totally there on that one. But the 3.5 is going to be super hard for them because Willie Fritz is known as a coach who's a bit of a slow builder, a bit of a slow burner, that he is going to be a brick-by-brick coach rather than one who's going to immediately inject life into the program. At Oklahoma versus Iowa State, at Kansas, at TCU versus Utah, at Kansas State, and at Arizona is a brutal schedule. Another team very similar to Baylor that just got handed a insane stretch of games that they have to deal with. So sadly, Houston fans, I have to predict that it's going to be too tough for you to get to 4 wins.
Yeah, under. Don't like Houston. Every time that I start wanting to buy in on the Cougs in football or basketball, they disappoint. And they just, maybe they don't have the resources to really cross the finish line of this level that they're on.
I think they do eventually.
Eventually,
I think they
sure.
do eventually.
And I don't, Houston's fine. It's never been like, oh, Houston coach, called us out in a post game, but they've never eclipsed that margin in my mind that says, oh, you got to really start locking in, focusing, betting on Houston. We got to turn the Houston game on. Never been there. I don't think I'll be there this year. I think they will have 3 wins. Houston under 4.
R.I.P. Houston. Iowa State 7.5. This was a really tough one. They got a really shortchanged on the number that they were throwing and the schedule that they were given. At Iowa, at West Virginia, at Kansas, at Utah versus Kansas State were the games that really stood out to me. They have to go on the road against 4 really difficult opponents. That's what's really catching my attention with Iowa State, because I think that they're always going to be stout on defense. They run that 3-3-5 like the Navy. They run it so efficiently and effectively, and they create some really underrated defensive stars. The way that they develop guys. And Rocco Becht is somebody who, one of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12, was a shining spot for them despite the slow start that they had last year. But God, that stretch of away games that they have against the top half of the conference, I think is just going to be too tough. So give me the under.
Yep, smashing the under on this. There's a lot about Iowa State that I should like and do like. Matt Campbell's a coach that at times wins me over, and then a week later I'll be completely out on him just because it's either coaching incompetence at times, bad calls. His demeanor on the sidelines is way too up and down. I'm not going to carry a bet through a season on Iowa State watching his antics on the sideline. Melting down or happy-go-lucky in a blowout loss, find a happy medium and I'll start betting on you, Campbell. Maybe I shouldn't bet on you. Maybe you'll win more games without it. Regardless, Iowa State under, smashing it. Can't stand the Cyclones as of late. Can't stand them.
Blake hates him because his hat. Go look
the
up
big eye.
Just go. No, he it's disturbing how much he folds he curves his brim. It's in every single picture. You'll see it. Look him up.
Oh, that's excessive.
Yeah, that's some psycho. But yeah, I've never seen anything like it.
That's like
I don't know if it's because he's got a narrow ass head or is it. That alone, you're taking the under.
That's the Sandlot. Why is he? He's a grown man wearing the Sandlot hat. I rewatched The Sandlot probably 2 years ago, and I saw that the protagonist, I don't even remember his stupid name, rolls out on the field with the Babe Ruth baseball, a brim going a foot out, curved the bridge. Yeah, here I am, Coach Anderson on the field. Let's go Cyclones. Let's get it going.
That just means the way that I perceive it is super wound tight, basically. So he's just sitting there squishing the shit out of his hat in meetings.
That's exactly it. He just needs a
white knuckling his goddamn hat.
A stress ball. Might have just
come on,
hat.
Matt, get it together. Take the under just because of the hat bit. Kansas, but this one was I was stunned. 8.5 on Kansas. The sports books hate the Jayhawks.
What?
Now I think that there's going to be there's question marks for Kansas that could make things a little tricky for them, and it's very specific for Jalen Daniels. How healthy is he throughout the entirety of the season? Jason Bean is gone. He was, I think, really important last year for them taking a next step because Daniels went down and he was dynamic enough of an athlete and experienced enough to help them win tough games like when they beat Oklahoma. But right now, that backup situation is a little bit in flux. I would love to know, I'm blanking on what the kid's name, but because he came into one of the games when Bean went down. And he was a little shaky, but he was a young kid, so I give him a little bit of grace there. But if Daniels is healthy and he plays most of the season, I am a true believer of the Jayhawks. I only really saw 2 difficult games for them. I think that they have a super, super favorable schedule. At West Virginia is a potential landmine going on the road because, again, that is a difficult-ass place to play. And then I think that Kansas State is going to get the best of them. So give me the over, though. That's only 2 games, 8.5. That gives them a really, really nice cushion to get to at least 9 wins and potentially 10.
You are bullish on West Virginia. Goodness. Regardless.
Their line is stupidly low, which we'll get to.
I am so excited to see Kansas destroy Illinois in the beginning of the season. I can't wait. I have so much hostility towards the Illini from last season.
Yeah, they made me look dumb.
They made me look like just a jackass on this show talking about they're front and what they're going to do. No, they stink. Go Kansas. Hoping for that. I think it's going to be tough to pack a lot of these teams at the top. Kansas should have the approach and the media love as Colorado because it can be a fun offense. It's a great coach, a lot of fans, big stadium, all of it. 8 that's just a tough number for them. God,
why?
It's just tough.
That's so low.
Because it's Kansas.
Oh no, your helmet. You're deciding on logos.
At times,
your helmet scouting.
At times, it matters for betting.
So you picked Colorado because they're fun and happy to root for, but you don't want to pick Kansas because
I would not say Colorado is happy to root for. I would say they're fun. I'd say they have some fun offensive players. I had Kansas written down at 8. I'm not going to back off of it. I have them on the under. 8 wins on this season.
All right. Kansas State, 9.5. I'm going to keep this very succinct. I think that they are going to have the most explosive backfield in the conference and one of the best in the country. They're going to have one of the best run games in college football with Avery Johnson, who is really a fun athlete at quarterback. Dylan Edwards, who they brought in from Colorado, and DJ Giddens, who was already there. That trifecta, I think, is going to produce some really productive, huge games for the Wildcats. I have been super bullish on them. I think that they and Utah are going to be competing to win the conference. But I'm going with them. I'm taking the over. I really only see a couple of... I don't even know if I really see enough true games I feel they're going to lose because they have a lot of advantages.
Early, though.
But they're playing a lot of their difficult games they're playing at home. So they get Kansas at home, they get Arizona at home, and they get Oklahoma State at home. So there is a real easy shot, I think, it's really aggressive to say that they're going to win potentially 11 games, but 10 seems extremely workable for them.
Gosh, they're at Tulane, Colorado, and West Virginia, though.
Tulane?
Yeah, Tulane.
Tulane.
It's pronounced Tulane, not Tulane.
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 It's Tulane.
Tulane.
Kansas State over. I love Kansas State in the over. Don't go searching up a pronunciation. I think they beat Colorado. I'm not worried about them versus West Virginia. Tulane is going to be a good game, but I have Kansas State smashing the over, and I like. All right, go ahead, do your bit.
Wait, I'm trying to. Wait, they put. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. They put into Google where you can speak into it, and it will tell you if you're saying it correctly.
So you pointed the microphone at the monitor.
Can you hear that?
Yeah, give it one more. Tulane.
You can hear that? You said Tulane.
Tulane.
Tulane. T-O-O. This is what the phonetic spelling is T-O-O-L-A-Y-N. Tulane.
I'm
Say it.
pronouncing it. Tulane.
Two. Not ta. Two. Say it.
No.
We're not moving on until you say it.
It's not
Tulane.
pronounced Tulane.
You're garbage. You're just trash. I'm trying to educate you.
You're a full.
You done with your
That's
take?
funny.
What was your take?
Come on. Yeah, I took the over. That was a joke that should have gotten over. It didn't. Regardless, yeah, Kansas State over. Love them, and I do have them and Utah at the end of the season duking it out also. They're the two premier, and I've been waiting to talk about Kansas State. They're so balanced. They're strong. They keep on getting great quarterbacks in that program, and they're going to keep on winning. And I know that last year there was a little heat for them to really do it all. It didn't happen. This year, maybe we put it on simmer, and then they just coast through it.
Next team that we got, Oklahoma State. A little bit in flux right now with the Ollie Gordon situation. I don't think he's going to be out for a ton of the season. We did mark the South Dakota State game as a potential upset, as one that we really loved. We thought that was really intriguing to pay attention to. I'm going to, just for the sake of this conversation, remove that from the prediction of games that they could lose. 8.5, their number. They really only have 3 really sketchy games on their schedule. Now, another team that was given a lot of favorability, I think that they hit 9, but that's their hard ceiling. I just don't see them being a team that goes over 9 wins. Versus Utah, at Kansas State, versus West Virginia were the 3 that I wrote down. But the thing with Oklahoma State, particularly Alan Bowman, and I said this last show, I just feel like Oklahoma State's always good for one dumb loss. And last year was UCF. And Oklahoma State fans, don't act like that wasn't a horrendously stupid, ridiculous loss. You got smoked by a team that you were much better than. So we got to remember here that there's at least one of those that's going to happen to a team that they're not supposed to lose to. So I'm sorry to do this to Mike Gundy in Oklahoma State, but give me the over. But I don't think it's going to be more than 9.
I had them written at 8. I have them losing to either South Dakota State or Arkansas. One of the two was bunched. That was one of my bunches. I said Arkansas is a coin flip and South Dakota State is a coin flip. So if I have 2 coin flips right next to each other, I'm going to count that as somewhere they're dropping a game. Puts them under the 8.5. This is another one. If you take it, I think you'll know early. If they're 3-0 in moving into game 4 against Utah, and they're leaving. I know they got a bad stretch after that, but if you're 3-0 going into that and you take the over, you'll probably win the bet. If you take the under, you'll lose that bet. It'll be an early decider between those first 2 weeks. I have the under though. I think they will drop one.
On to TCU, 7.5. God, is another one of these teams that just got a really ugly number. Not a very favorable one. The games that I marked down that are going to be tough for them, UCF's a coin flip for me. At Kansas, at Utah, horrible road games that you have to deal with against 2 better teams, versus Oklahoma State and versus Arizona that you get to host. Oh, man, it would really require, and I just feel like that they're in limbo a little bit. They're kind of stuck where they were last year. I think that they improved from last year. I don't think that the floor is going to continue to fall out the way that it did. I think that Sonny Dykes is good enough of a coach to bounce back, but 7 wins feels more realistic than them getting to 8.
Yep. Under, I had them written in at 6. They're just not instilling confidence in me right now, and they weren't before. Pretty similar to Cincinnati as we're starting to look and roll with it, and that does not bode well for their over. Yeah, I have them under for sure. 7.5 way too high.
Texas Tech, another 7.5 team, which makes this one a little bit tricky. I love Taj Brooks, so I'm a big supporter of him. That factored in heavily. I'm going with the over, but I think that this is probably one of the lowest, or the thinnest margin, rather, for this to really come to fruition. They have to play at Arizona, at TCU, at Iowa State, at Oklahoma State. Those are all brutal road games, and then versus West Virginia. So I'm kind of hoping that they steal one of those and they get to 8 wins. I think that they continue to improve, but there's also a little bit of a hard cap on this team. Like we were talking about with Oklahoma State. So give me them getting to 8, I think is certainly doable, but it's going to require a little bit of extra work.
I had them at 8. I had them written down at 8, right on the dot. Previewing of the actual lines. If you have a solid run game, that knocks so much off of your plate of what you have to take care of throughout the season. And, stuff happens, and maybe scheme or injury, whatever. But right now, if we're taking a future of win totals, it has to be the over. It does. If you have such a dominant force as a part of your team, you have to factor that in for at least 3 games, 3 to 4 games. If you really do have dominant explosion running back, Taj Brooks taking over some games, he's going to get you 4. Figure out the other 4 because you're Texas Tech. You will. I like it. I like the over.
Rounding the bases now on the last 3 that we've got. UCF, 7.5. This one seems aggressively high because I feel like, actually, I'm not going to go that far. I'm a KJ Jefferson fan. I think that his inclusion on a team with a number of really productive running backs, they have a ton of guys that they brought in the portal, guys that are returning. I think that their run game is going to be really good, especially that KJ Jefferson is, if he's healthy, is going to help lead the way for them. But they've got another team that's just getting their, potentially their teeth kicked in with their scheduling. Going to Florida, I'm just throwing that one out. They're not being, I know Florida's down bad right now, but going to Florida at the beginning of the season with Napier's job on the line, you ain't coming out with that one. I'm sorry, UCF. At Iowa State, it's not going to be winnable for them. Versus Arizona, I don't think is going to be winnable for them. At West Virginia, again, landmine on the road, tough game to win on the road. And then I don't see them beating Utah. So, yeah, them getting over, that's 5 games right there. I think that they're perfectly stuck at that 7 number.
UCF was, oh, sorry, Joe. A bumblebee just flew into my window screen, so I have to look at it. Regardless.
Screw you, okay?
I really like KJ Jefferson. I like Gus Malzahn. I want to like UCF and be ready for them and have them be great. I thought Arkansas was so discombobulated on offense last season that they just did not help him out. You have a tank playing quarterback. There's so many things that we should love about Arkansas last year. They didn't do it. Let's get some new scenery. I'm starting to completely change my new viewpoint. Get them in a new school. Let's see what happens. The under is unfortunately going to have to be selected. 7.5 is uber aggressive from the books for UCF. That is way too much, way too quick. I think that the smart play is 5 or under. I had them at 5, and then maybe we get close. I don't think it's going to be that close to 7 though.
Last 2 that we got here: Utah 9.5. I really like this Utah team, and Cam Rising, assuming he is the same guy that we knew from a couple of years ago. Their O-line, I think, is one of the better in the conference. They're always a hard-nosed rushing team, and their defense, despite losing a couple of guys like Sione Vaki and Cole Bishop, they are going to be, I think, the pinnacle of defensive dominance in the Big 12. I think a lot of these teams are not going to be ready to get punched in the mouth the way that they're going to bring 2 games that only really stood out to me at Oklahoma State and versus Arizona, and those were question marks as tough games that they couldn't win. I think they might go 11-1. If they were able to a couple of years ago win the Pac-12 and do what they did, I really think that they are going to run the table in the Big 12, and we are going to find out very quickly how dominant Utah could be in the future in the Big 12.
I severely distrust Utah. I do. I've continuously distrusted them.
Scouting the helmet.
Keep on interjecting. But I think that they might have the easiest transition into the Big 12 out of all the Pac-12 teams. Scouting the helmet. Yeah, okay.
There you go.
It goes both ways, dummy. Regardless, I do think Whittingham's a good coach. They can get you over. They're going to be competing for the Big 12 championship. That's just what Utah does. Even if they have a treacherous month somewhere in this schedule, give them one treacherous month, I guarantee end of the year there'll be a problem for some team making a chase. There'll be a problem in November. It's what they do. They hit the hell out of you. They score crazy touchdowns. The defense is good, and they get loud in their stadium. Utah's smashing the under. They're clearing it. But again, the mistrust and their years of constantly disappointing me, that'll carry over a little bit. But a smooth over in the Big 12, that hits. I really do think it hits.
Last one. West Virginia getting the most favorable line possible. 6.5. The books hate them. The books hate the Mountaineers. Give me the over. A couple tough games that they have on the schedule. They're a team that got a seriously beneficial home schedule. So they get Penn State at home. I don't think that they're going to beat Penn State, but they get Kansas at home. They get Kansas State at home, and then they go to Arizona. Those were the ones that I ID'd as 4 losable ones. I think that they could be an 8-9 win team this upcoming year. And it all really kind of comes down to me. Their offensive line is extremely underrated. Wyatt Milam is a quality player, one of the better offensive tackles in college football. They're returning a lot of experience at that position. Underrated defense for me. I think that they're going to run the ball really well. And most importantly, though, is that last year we doubted them, and they found a way to rally. And if last year everyone picked them to be last in the damn conference, and they had that explosive of a turnaround with as many question marks as they did, and this year it feels like there's more security, you can bet your ass I am going to pick them to hit the over on that 6.5.
That's fine. I think 6.5, that line is so low for West Virginia. I had them written down at 6, right on the bubble. I am more bearish on them than you are, and
Bad take.
That's fine. Let it be a bad take then. I think
West
they
Virginia
go
fans
under.
cook his
I
ass.
think they go under. All right? Come on. This is a tough schedule, Joe. It's tough. They did get blessed with the home games. Come on, though. They got to go to Pittsburgh for the backyard brawl? No, not happening. West Virginia shocks the nation under 6.5 this year. That's what happens. Neil Brown fired. New administration 2025.
Holy. All right, well, that's the worst take that we've had in this show, and it's a wonderful note to wrap us up on. At Joe DeLeone, at Sanderson Radio. West Virginia fans, go all in on Sean as you please. We'll talk to you later.